Hi again then guys, and so we're revisiting a form of tuning which we haven't done on the channel for quite a while, but this is of course the way the channel really got started as far as Gran Turismo videos, top speed tunes. But this top speed tune is a little bit different, because usually when I do a top speed tune, we tune the car as far as it can go to see how fast it can go. With this particular build, this is much more niched, much more specialised, and the car is a perfect vehicle for specialised top speed racing. The car is the Audi or Auto Union Type C Streamliner, one of the best classics, or to be honest vintage cars in the game, the oldest car featured on Gran Turismo 6, and as you can see it's sitting at the 300 horsepower level. Now that may seem to be strange, but the reason for that is so that if you are in power limited racing, and it doesn't have to be just 300 horsepower, it could be 400 or even 500 in the case of this car, you can have this vehicle as an option to pretty much have a guaranteed chance of winning. There's really only one other vehicle which can really rival this car in terms of speed. Kind of two, but only one really. The Dome Zero can rival it, but not that much. The real rival is the light car company Rocket, which is extremely rapid, but this is for those of you who, like myself, would rather use the Audi. Now I've gone for racing softs, because of course they give you the best grip at those kind of speeds. For the suspension I've lowered the ride height to 70mm front and rear. Springs we've got on 975 and 1325. The dampers and anti-roll to 4. Camber is not an option on this one. We've got neutral toe as well. We'll come back to the gearbox in just a second. As far as the diff, I've got halfway on initial torque to stiffen up the steering, stop the car from weaving all over the road as it often can. Acceleration and braking we've got as low as possible for the same reason. As far as power, I have fitted an oil change to this one, just to compensate for those who may have already done so that you don't have to buy an entire new car. Then we've reduced the power down to 56% or 300 horsepower, and of course you want your downforce as low as possible. Finally, for the gearbox, this build is more about speed on its own rather than draft potential. It does have some draft potential, but that's not the purpose of it. We've got an auto setting of 205, then individual gears of 4.3, 2.7, 1.9, 1.4 and 1125 with a final drive of 2. Now, if you do want to have this for, say, 400 or 500 horsepower racing, etc., you will need to adjust the gears, but the essential concept which we're using here can be exaggerated, in effect, if you do need it to cope with more power. But overall, that's it for the build. So, now let's go out to the track to see what kind of speeds we can get with this car. Because the V16 Streamliner is, of course, an extremely fast car for its power. Fully tuned, it's still nowhere near as powerful as most other vehicles which it's as quick as. Fully tuned, you're looking at around 300 miles per hour from, I believe it's roughly 743 horsepower, if I remember correctly. I absolutely love this car. One of the best things about it is the fuel economy. Ironically, you can get up around 6 or 7 laps of Special Stage Route X as long as you stay in other people's draft for most of the time. But overall, it's an excellent car, and it's kind of an undervalued one as well. The fact that it doesn't have NOS is a bit of a shame, but still, it is extremely quick. Now, as you can see, even though it's only got 300 horsepower, it's still seriously quick. And this is one of those cars which, although as you can see the red line light is flashing, that doesn't really matter on this car, because you can go well into the red line before it actually hits the true red line, if you will. This car actually redlines at about 5,500 RPM. It cruises at just under 5,000, so you've got a good 500 or so RPM of draft potential. Now, under its own power, this car will do with this particular tune about 228-ish miles per hour, which is extremely fast for a 300 horsepower vehicle. And as I said, really the only thing that can give it a great run for its money is the Rocket, because even the Dome Zero would have to be detuned to match this power level. So, as far as draft potential, I haven't actually tested it in a race, but given how quick it is at 5,000, You do have, as I said, roughly 500 RPM to work with before you hit the real red line, so I think this should probably go over 240, maybe even close to 250 before actually hitting the real red line. Now, as far as its handling, the Streamliner is sometimes not viewed too well due to its handling. It can be a little bit slippery through corners, even at high speeds. This particular tune, though, makes it a dream to drive. The fact that you've also only got 300 horsepower to deal with just makes it even better. It's very, very easy to drive. The handling on this car is excellent. You can get right down into the corner with no problems at all. It's an extremely good handling car, unless you hit the wall like I did, of course. But overall, for 500,000 credits, it's an excellent piece to have in your garage. It's a classic, it's a vintage car really, and it's a useful one. I've always loved this car on GT6, and if you haven't tried it, I definitely recommend doing it. It's a useful weapon to have in your arsenal. So if you do decide to use this build or modify it for different power levels, obviously I hope you find it fun, and it is most definitely competitive, if not a little bit niche, that has to be said. But if you'd like to keep up with other tunes like this in the future, be sure to hit subscribe down below to see those as soon as they're released. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.